All right, and we're live. So
Mm. So,
I'm going to bring this meeting to order. Chair.
indeed, Kevin.
So I think it would be useful to go over some of our backgrounds a little bit. So I would describe the chair as someone versed in human behavior and group dynamics, who is an observer of human behavior across many spectrums.
Yeah, that's I guess certainly with how worn I am, as you can go. If you want to think about it that way, yes. And as for cabinet, someone I would say who's extremely versed in not just literature, but the deep found knowledge in the understanding of our country and everything that kind of comes with it, bordering on that which is lost. And unfortunately, what is lost to most Americans, and something I think we need to go back to a little bit to reconcile not just where we are, but inevitably to see what was there still has relevance to today, and unfortunately, it's being forgotten
Well,
all
whatever
too
it
much.
is, I probably have that in a drawer somewhere.
I mean, there's clearly plenty of them here. If not, the dog definitely took it where I am. So,
So we'll get into the news of the day.
mhm.
Clearly, the election is big news. It is going about as I had predicted. Um,
uh, I would say, you know, A plus for your guesses, but it's not exactly the outcome we wanted. But
no, things never go well when they go as I intend, or things never go well when they go as I anticipate, because that is not usually what I intend. So, well, there's a couple things. So there's first like how close the election is, and continues to be, and a lot of consternation will come out of uh, various perceived imbalances and unfairnesses in the process. Um,
the
I don't
polls still
comment
going
on
again.
too much of that until I see more, right? Because like
Right.
it's easy for there to be lots of people saying, "Oh, I found something wrong," or "It looks like there's something wrong," but of course you find what you're looking for. And when there's this much going on, it's that complex a system. There will be improprieties in the election process. The question is whether or not those are, um,
Created purposefully.
yeah, or large enough to threaten the whole thing.
Right.
Which I would prefer to cast some doubt upon,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that the belief in the system as a whole working is an important part of our institution, and I would not wish to unduly or rashly diminish that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I mean, that is certainly something you could argue, depending on the perspective of any individual that either you or I know, or just those out there are looking at this right now, wondering, is what Donald Trump's doing the correct pathway or is it not? But then you obviously have the opposite side who is saying, like, if we do not dive into this, we are going to not only regret it later, but also we need to draw out that unfair play, if that indeed is the case of what's happening. So some are willing to dive that far. Some think that even in the process of doing so, you're going to open up a wound that will never be able to close. I mean, just as you described, you're going to destroy some of that, I guess you could say, expectation of the system working. I mean, is that one way to describe it?
Yeah, I would say that good faith in the system across the body politic is important.
Right.
Um, we can disagree about almost everything else, but if you have faith in the system breaking down along partisan lines, that's very very difficult to recover. Um,
Well,
and
that's
and I think that you can look at Eastern Europe and their election processes and see that that things have not improved. Uh, that it will be a long, long road to recovery from the time when elections were being controlled by the state.
Right. Yeah, that is certainly the case.
So
Which is kind of funny. That one article that I have chosen for today, considering all the events that are going on right now, and I mean, just an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, as of right now, Biden has claimed Pennsylvania and claimed Nevada, and technically has the electoral votes to claim the presidency, which I think he's getting ready to do in Philadelphia right now as we speak. Or at least that's what at least some of the local news stations there are supposedly reporting. I'll have to get to that later, but
yeah, and
you
again, that's on par with my expectations. I think that Trump will probably, uh, like him or hate him, Trump is nothing if not industrious. I think he
yeah.
will leave no stone unturned, although, or that is to say, he will demand that no stone be left unturned. I don't know if the people that he has pushing his legal battles are going to be as efficacious as he might hope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do hope that if anything comes out of that, I think it's very doubtful that he finds something under one of those stones that would change the outcome. I do hope that out of that process we get out of that sort of checking of the process, we end up with a more reliable process, right? So that if there are improprieties, that they are found and improved, or that the defenses against such things are improved for future elections.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I know we want to start on one of the articles, but I mean, you just saying that brought up an interesting thing to think about. Like, if you are him, and you're saying, as you just mentioned, to find those inconsistencies and those problems, is it advantageous for him? Like, let's say he's sitting there wondering, am I going to make another run in 2024? And if I am, do I need to find something? Do I need some sort of smoking gun to use as a jumping off point for 2024? Do I need to find that now? Or do I don't say slink away, but do I give up the presidency like he should, unless he finds something major, which more than likely that's not going to be the case. And does he just wait it out and let Joe Biden have enough rope to hang himself with?
I don't think that there's. If you have something, you use it. If you don't have something, you don't. But I think that you may find, if you find a hole in the system and you find that you're not making any traction pointing out the hole, you're saying, look, there's a hole here. There's a way that people can and maybe did abuse the electoral system, um, and nobody wants to listen to that. Maybe the agencies that should be looking into it aren't looking into it. Um, Maybe you say, okay, well, I'll make note of that hole and I'll use it myself next time, which
Mm-hmm.
is a horrifying thought. Like I don't like this conversation at all, and I don't think any American should like this conversation.
No,
Um,
no,
but it is
certainly
not.
not.
It is. Look, a lot of things are Trump's fault in terms of the language he uses and the things he brings up. This is not Trump. This is a weakness in the faith of the system that has been fostered um, by the self-proclaimed enemies of Trump. But in this particular regard, they may find, okay, well, it's justified to use this to bring down this evil giant orange man that we hate so much. But they make themselves, if they really are um, willing to do anything towards that end, anything includes running roughshod over the American people. So let's hope not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into these articles. I think that might be more fruitful.
Mm-hmm. We should be able to both see it. Yeah, just still okay. Beautiful back. I don't think either you or I can remain on this plane of existence, though, as a cabinet chair. Should not. Edit that out. Thanks. Maybe. You're still. Yes. Hmm. It's a, mhm. Can we make it larger? Or no? No, it is not. No, it is not. All right. We're so used to the Google Classroom that we have to revert back to more primitive means of Zoom. But don't worry, this could just be edited out. Aha! That was it. Yes. Thanks. Mhm. So reading through this, and I mean, compared to all the articles that you and I have sent to one another, and there's pieces of all of those sort of in this. Um, the author is just going into detail, like what are we going to expect from Joe Biden? What is he going to run into? He has all these plans and spend all this money on an infrastructure plan and to regain our national standing. However, he is going to be ruling over, as it says at the top, Donald Trump's America, as if even getting rid of him hasn't gotten rid of the problem. And that's been the premise for some of the other articles, obviously, that I sent you that refer to kind of disparagingly towards, Caucasian Americans, talking about even just conservatives in general. I mean, obviously, you sent me the video of what AOC wanted to do with quote, quote, Trump supporters.
Right. Well, I think this is evidence that Trump has successfully carved out some living space in people's heads. Right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Trump is living rent free at Time Magazine.
Yes.
Trump is living rent free at CNN. Trump is living rent free um, across. I hate to broadly use this term, but across the left. And when I say that, I mean the Democrat Party
Hmm.
and the media.
Hmm.
So even whatever the never Trump thing is, whether that's some factions within Fox News or whatever they are, Romney, I don't know. I think there's a group of people who are going to be um, defining themselves in regards to Trump for a very long time.
Hmm.
That is to say, we are not Trump, or you know, I think that's evidence of an absence of any real substance.
And that is, I mean, you hit the nail on the head just from saying that. I cannot tell you the number of individuals, um, both that are on the right and on the left and in the middle, who basically have told me privately, um, if Trump just was not the way he was on Twitter, if he would just have a little more common sense and not just bull in a china shop into every situation, he would have been there would have been no way to stop him during this election. Um, I mean, yesterday I was just considering the fact if there was no coronavirus, my God, um, it would have been so hard to defeat him due to the economy alone. But here we are. And the left very successfully um, painted this picture of who he was, and he sort of self did it himself. But now it's more than that. Now it's not just Donald Trump; it's the people who voted for him as well that are the target. And just as you said too, this will transcend him to some degree. And if you're a politician on the conservative side, obviously you notice that the tactics are effective, but no one can be like Donald Trump. No one can be like him.
Well, no, and I don't. I'm not sure I completely buy into the idea that if you had a tame, well-behaved, well-mannered Trump who didn't have three broken marriages behind him or whatever the hell, that somehow this would ingratiate him with the the self-described moderate wing of the Republican Party or the centrist wing of the American electorate. Um, it seems to me that that describes Romney. And it seems to me that Romney lost an election quite soundly. And you could make a case that that was more Obama's success than Romney's failure, but I don't know that. Um, I think that there are more than tools sufficient to demonize a conservative leaning president.
Individual. Yeah.
And that it doesn't matter. Like that was just the bludgeon that was available.
Right.
But honestly, when you look at the economy, no American president has ever been reelected during a recession.
Ah, but is this? It does. It counts as a recession. I don't see it as a
Unless you
recession.
want to count FDR. But I mean, honestly, then I get to use Herbert Hoover.
Right. Then
Right? So,
drag him out of the cabinet.
no American president has ever been reelected with unemployment numbers as high as they presently are. Now, you can look at the context and say, yeah, that's not his fault. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And I
right. It
said this
doesn't matter.
back in May,
Yep. You're right. It doesn't
that your opponents will use it.
matter.
Your opponents will say, we need to shut down all these businesses because safety, because the virus, and then the economy will stagnate, and they will point at you and they will say, look how bad the economy is under the reign of this president. And they will never be challenged on the incongruity of those statements.
Mm-hmm. And you were right. You were certainly
The
right.
electorate has a short attention span.
It certainly does, and this has been something both you and I have brought up a million times, and something I have obviously tried to bring up to other people we talk to all the time. And it's a real mess in that instance. Now, obviously, if you read the article there, you can go down. I'm trying to find the one part that
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to bring up here, and I
Yeah,
believe it is
what are they saying here? Because I didn't get to dig into every bit of the article. But so if Joe Biden wins, he will govern Donald Trump's America. Let me count off the top of my head. Okay, an America with an economic recovery that seems to be going like gangbusters, if all the indications are correct.
Mm-hmm.
An America that is deeply, deeply in debt, but no one president could be held responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
An America that has more wealth creation over the last 4 years than really over the previous 8 years combined.
Mm-hmm.
An America that has some deep-seated sort of identity issues that are being played out, but I think that those are issues being dredged up from the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
But you inherit a military, presumably, that has ammo.
Mm-hmm.
So you inherit a bunch of things that Donald Trump did not inherit. I don't know that you necessarily get to complain. Let me see. A relationship with South Korea and with NATO allies that has them pulling more weight as a consequence of some brinksmanship. A situation with China that is admittedly grown colder, but is also has us on stronger footing and has us better prepared for that sort of breakup process if we need to do it. A situation where we're not in any wars. We're not in the
Well,
Middle East anymore in any significant way.
right. We're not. We're nowhere significantly, but still teetering. Just around the corner. We're all, our fingers are still everywhere. But that has always been the case
Well,
of every president.
having bases across the world is an asset, right?
Right.
It's
But
not the
I mean,
same as
like,
being like stuck as we were um, in Syria at the start of
right.
this presidency.
And that's just to jump in real quick, something that I was digging into today as well. Biden was praising. There's video footage of Biden praising Donald Trump for these peace deals that he is generating with in the Middle East with Israel.
Oh yeah, I
From
didn't
all
even mention the United Arab Emirates or anything else.
right,
Yeah,
right, and
let's
Trump has
just add
been
that to the list. Oh,
right.
400 more miles of border wall, so the border's a little more secure. It's a little harder for human traffickers and drug cartels and stuff to do stuff. I'm sure it's not perfect, but
Right.
you have more than you had. So in terms of the resources that you have at your disposal coming in as president of the United States, when you inherit Donald Trump's America, I'd say you could do worse.
If you go down to the third and fourth paragraph, I mean, I described it kind of the top, but I definitely want to bring up. Let's see. Okay, so even if he has lost, a president who trampled the rule of law for 4 years was on pace to collect millions more votes this time than last. And though they braced for a blowback, the congressional Republicans who enabled him instead notched unexpected gains. The GOP appears likely to retain the majority in the Senate, cutting the Democratic House majority, defying the polls, and fundraising deficits. Republicans held onto the states such as Florida, South Carolina, Ohio, Iowa. Democrats had hoped to flip. They cut into Democrats' margins with non-white voters, made gains with Latinos in South Florida, Rio Grande, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, huge turnout on non-college educated white people, while halting what many conservatives feared was an inevitable slide in the suburbs. So, I mean, you can see the framing of where this article is going. That the battle lines are still being drawn for something that is going to happen way into the future, right? And then you go into the next paragraph there. Um, yeah, I'm just going to read it from the other source that I have right here. Yes, right here. As the voters were tallying the following day, wait, did I get to the right one or did I miss it? 1 second. Yes. As the voters were tallied into the following day, the candidates' positions fell along predictable lines. The challenger encouraged a core exercise of democracy to continue while the president tried to stop it. Biden's camp urged patience. Trump's voiced unfounded suspicions about the fraud and cast unwarranted doubt on the still incoming returns. Despite widespread chaos, the vote was mostly peaceful and devoid of major irregularities. The president's baseless declaration of victory was a sign that the test he had posed to American institutions isn't over yet. So Time, at least, or at least this particular writer, um, is poking at the things that he doesn't want to just come out, or excuse me, she. I missed who is our wonderful individual here who wrote it. I was going to say Miss Ball decided to bring up, and it's just the labyrinth of articles coming out and the headlines. Somebody, the other Time magazine, or yeah, the other Time article specifically saying, blame white people if Donald Trump wins. Just right, right. Like the
So I didn't record that. Because Biden got a majority of white people to vote for him, like it's what I want to know is, so Trump did better among Latinos, better among African Americans than any Republican candidate in 30 years or something like that.
Right.
Okay, and he's
And that is scary. He is evil. The things he is doing. This is simply a buildup for what can come later, and that in itself is scary. At least to me, and I'm sure it is to you, is that they are painting a picture of this isn't just Trump. This allowed people who thought like Trump to come out in droves, in mass numbers, which also is being weaponized too because of the mass turnout.
well.
Again,
Well,
I mean, what we're
of course, Trump himself is the avatar, the paragon representative of evil, terrible, awful, bad, no good, racist America, right?
which
Uh,
apparently has survived, right? That is still everywhere, in every street corner, and that could not be farther from the truth. But
but
then,
America is founded on terrible racist principles, and everything it does is tainted forever. But I'm saying that that's not me saying
right,
that. That's not me
right,
trying to mischaracterize somebody.
right,
These are mainstream figures saying these sorts of things now.
right. Well, then that's when you and I would always discuss, and as we're bringing here, uh, the comment that Ben Shapiro says, if I see racism, if you see racism, and we can see it, let's fight it together. But if you have this thing in the darkness, this concept that is hidden outside of everyone's sight that you can only speak about but not prove, then it can never be fixed. It can never be gotten rid of. It only takes one singular individual to scream institutional racism for it to be true. And that is simply a negative that is recycled over and over and over again, and can be weaponized in itself.
Right, and I think we don't really disagree on any of that. I I hope that eventually that house of cards comes crashing down because I don't. It's not the America I grew up in. It's not the America I interact with. I interact with people every day who are of many different persuasions or identities, um, who don't allow those persuasions and identities to define who they are
Mm-hmm.
wholesale. It's not. What is it? Did Trump get a high percentage of the LGBT vote as well? I think, right?
Right,
It's just
higher than previously.
self-described as LGBT, and it's okay. Well, clearly, if he's antithetical to people who have different identities relative to their gender or sex, um, why would they vote for him? Like, I mean, clearly some people did not. Many people, most people probably did not within that
Right,
group. But and a bulk of those people who did not probably believe that he is antithetical to
right.
them. But
That's a Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's just something interesting. There's something interesting to think about. Like you talk about the Latin American community, the African American community, and obviously for such a prolonged period of time, um, over the course of our history, they have not been treated obviously as equals. Using the lens of time, we can see that, and thankfully that has gone away tremendously. I mean, there's obviously still people out there who are racist, but again, to
I mean,
judge,
the question is what's the role of government, right?
right,
When we're talking about politics, we're talking about people who are going to be at the levers of power,
mm-hmm.
and it seems that the traditional way of looking at the levers of power in America is that they had nothing to do with your identity, right? They had
Mm-hmm.
everything to do with the collective identity of United States citizens, right? So whatever is best for the bulk of United States citizens is what the stated goal is, and of course all the ugliness of politics and personal ambition and those sorts of things come into play. But the idea of playing one group off against another, um, we've always had geographical differences and sectors of the market playing, but again, those are all about self advantage and ambition with regards to coin and things like that. It's in terms of wealth, but the idea that that somehow a United States that benefits me wouldn't benefit someone else just because that they have a different skin color is obscene to me. And I thought for sure if we didn't do away with it, um, with the Civil War, and clearly we didn't because there were still some governments within the United States treating people badly, namely state governments. We did do away with it in the 1960s with the Civil Rights Act and with Title IX and things like this. So it is now outright illegal for the government to treat any person differently, and in many cases it's illegal even for private businesses to treat someone differently based on their race, color, creed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Add sexual preference, obviously.
yeah, I mean,
I
so you add sexual preference, and that comes into a conflict of opinion with regards to how far Title IX extends, and whether or not you need different legislation for that, or whether or not that sort of language was an overreach to begin with, because all human rights are guaranteed in the Constitution to begin with. But I may have some quibbles with the Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s, but I have no quibbles with the intent.
Right.
That people be treated as human beings and then be judged on their merits. I want to compete with other people in the marketplace. I don't want to be given work because I'm this group or that group and I'm perceived to be disadvantaged as a consequence of some statistics somewhere.
And that is a quiver, or excuse me, an arrow in the quiver of currently left. I mean, you were talking about obviously kind of splitting up peoples and using them against one another. And obviously, you could argue that the Republicans had done it too in the past, and obviously, we know the Democrats have, and back and forth that they are pulling this, and still here we are, using emotion to fuel not just their party, but their later ambitions. And again, as you and I both know, especially where currently we are, that we see each other basically every day of the week. We work with so many people of a variety of sexual preferences and different races and different creeds, just as you mentioned, and with the idea of this person is like me, is equal to me in every possible way. And we feel it because we judge people as human beings, and we totally believe that. And the left has done everything possible to stare over at the right and say, or those who even just vote conservative and say, that's not how you think. You must think this way because you voted for a man who does X, Y, and Z by certain perceptions. And the funniest part is, again, Cabinet, as me, the department chair, we run into a multitude of people who do not think like us, who we can have wonderful conversations with, and are like, oh, wait, yeah, I can see that. We joke with each other, we talk to each other. But we're not the stereotype either. Again, the stereotype being used. Here we are again using the stereotype. I mean, what was it? They just mentioned here the uneducated white American, right? Like it's okay in one facet, but to use it, but not okay in any other facet. Like really? Ah,
I know, it's crazy. We should probably move on to the next article. The
yes.
One thing I wanted to get in here on the end of this was.
Yes.
I've lost it. I don't recall. But it goes back to the two ways that we see ourselves as Americans, or whether or not we even see ourselves as Americans or want to see ourselves as Americans. I don't know that that's necessarily as much the case. But so the argument has advanced so far beyond where I might have some quibbles with Title IX. The argument has gone so far where in California, I think did this go through? Did they actually successfully vote to remove Title IX protections in California?
No, I was watching Will Poole yesterday, or Tim Poole, thinking of the former person. Tim Poole said it. No, California shut it down, which thankfully, because it would get rid of so many things for so many people.
Right. So I guess they realized at the last minute that what they were doing could be interpreted in ways that would hurt them, like that would hurt the people they propound to be caring about. It just seems crazy. So on the other hand, There's another sort of hypocrisy happening on the right, though.
Right.
Actually, before I even get to the article, there's another hypocrisy. In Florida, Trump won Florida by like 2% in the end, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Florida also voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Hmm.
That seems incongruous to me.
Like, how is this? How is this feasible?
How do you think Trump is good for me, and you also think raising the minimum wage $15 is good for me? Like if you're bought in on the socialism, yeah, go ahead, raise the minimum wage to $1 million an hour. See how that works out. I don't. It's just like people want free stuff and they don't want to deal with the consequences, and they want to. I don't know. They want easy mode.
Yeah, and again, it's just the problem. We want to bring up so many articles, but you also see, I guess, damage control from a lot of left-leaning media sources. One of them was mentioning like, well, not every Latin American voted for Trump. Here's why there's two different groups. Like again, already cutting out, yeah, almost like cutting out. I guess what you maybe they deem to be a cancer. Um,
Right, right. How narrow a knife?
right,
Right? You're going to use a laser. You're going to use a monomolecular blade to to
right. Like
to, to,
who
to
is with us, who is
jigsaw
against us?
out who's allowed to be protected and who is the evil enemy.
Right, like it's already begun, and that's something that's a little scary. I know you want to go to the other article. You can, and it's just you said something that I want to bring up real quick. One of the people we work with, and I don't know if it'd be a good idea. I'm not going to obviously say names in any way, but
We should not name names. A
yes,
colleague said a thing.
no, not a colleague. I'm gonna put it this way: Cabinet and I work with younger people. We'll put it that way.
Oh, that's
And
fair
one of
enough.
these,
Okay, yeah, a
yeah,
client.
yes, we can put it that way. And one of these younger individuals, not even fully technically the age to vote, she was crying in class one day with me, obviously weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and mentioning, she's on TikTok and things of this nature, and she's like, there are so many people out there that say such mean things to me and other people that they want me to look at my flag. They want me to look at the country I'm a part of and to hate it. And it scared her and it made her sad and it made her upset. And she was saying like, this is a place where we can all talk, that we all can talk together and eat together and we can date whoever we want. And there's so many beautiful things. Why are you attacking the thing that has given you all of these things? And she said, I know it's not perfect, but we are making it better together, right? So why attack that thing that is progressive? Why do that? I mean, like, I had to console this individual. Um, and it was a heartbreaking moment for me seeing this person that way because in many ways I feel the same exact thing she does, but in that moment you have to be a little bit more rock solid. You have to be able to talk to that person. It's just it hurts so much to see that, and you're like, wow, like there are people, adults. Again, something else that Tim Pool said. There was a lady who pepper sprayed children because the car had a Trump sticker or a Trump flag on it up in New York City a couple days ago. Like, what are you thinking? You say one individual is not human or is an evil person, but you commit acts that are also evil or wrong and you expect it to be okay. Where is that
All
line?
right. Well, I don't want to paint an entire side with the actions of that clearly mentally deranged lady
Oh,
who needs
correct.
help. Um,
Judge by the individual, never by the group. I always say that. Yes.
but um, yeah, I mean, I think we live in a time where we see all these things constantly, right? And you would hope that the best would rise to the top, and sometimes on Reddit it does, and sometimes on Twitter it does not. I guess I guess some of these formats are better suited to the worst sort of behavior.